The following was recorded at the CCHF Conference 2023 in Cincinnati.
All right, I like to give people 60 seconds. So 9:31, we'll get started. There we go, 9:31, okay. Should I give you people more than 60 seconds? 60 seconds, plenty, okay. No, I'm good, yeah. Well, I've been told that I talk fast, so can you hear me? Is it echoey? Is that really loud, or is that all right? It's okay. I talk fast and I talk loud. That's me at baseline. So when I'm talking in front of people, I get really excited, and so I talk even faster, so I'm really sorry. I am from the South, though. So people go, where are you from in the North? I'm like, very Southern. Just talk fast. Well, my name is John David Williamson, and welcome. We're going to talk a little bit about mission statements, and the subtitle is How to Operationalize Your Mission Statement, which sounds very technical and fancy. It's not. This is going to be a workshop, if you didn't notice, not a lecture. So that means you're here to work in this shop. So we're gonna engage a little bit. Yeah, I'm very boring to hear a lecture, right, Glenn? So we're gonna dialogue some. I have to start with this picture because it softens your approach to me. Like, oh, it's a cute family. So this is my family. Thanks. That's good. This is my wife Jessica, who decided to sit in here. I don't know what's wrong with her. She hears enough from me. And my 4 kids. Actually, before I tell you about myself, let's there aren't a whole lot. We're going to turn around and meet one person near you. Introduce yourself. Say hi. All right, now you have to stop now. Okay. Sorry. It's the best part about CCHF, but you got to stop it. All right. All right, it really is the best part about CCHF. So I think this is why I come to this conference for many, many years now, is because of what just happened, honestly. So I wish we could just do a lot more of that. If you were in the Executive Summit, we did a lot of that for a day and a half as executive leaders. So I encourage you more of that. So again, this is my family. I live in Charleston, South Carolina. It's kind of weird to be at CCHF now because people say, well, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I'm a hospitalist. So it doesn't really fit the CCHF role. So my current day job is as a hospitalist. I work in Charleston at a hospital system there. But I've had a long kind of history with CCHF world, and that's where I say I get up and go to work every day at the hospital as a hospitalist, but my brain is always in CCHF world. So I'm from Charleston area. I did residency in medical school and residency there, and then went to Memphis for about 9 years and worked at Christ Community Health Services, then Resurrection Health. I'm going to tell you a little bit about things I've done, not because I've done great important things, but hopefully give you a little context for some of our conversations later. So this isn't like see my resume, but it's to, again, give some context. So we started a residency program there. So I was the founding program director of the residency program there. We started a new startup health organization called Resurrection Health. And I was the chief operating officer for that organization for a while. My wife and I then went overseas for a couple of years and worked in northern Iraq in a medical school there, a startup medical school. And I was the first chair of clinical science there for that medical school to help them start that. Then we moved back to Charleston in 2018, February 27th of 2020. If that time frame rings a bell for anyone, I decided to be a hospitalist. So it was a busy first year in Charleston. Currently, again, I work as a hospitalist, but involved in a couple of organizations in Charleston. We call ourselves neighbors. If you looked at my profile on CCHF, Hoover app, whatever, I'm the chief instigator, I like to say. Chief agitator. I have a real title there. So there's a group of us that are looking at starting a new health center, but really kind of this umbrella organization called Neighbors Health, which is several different models of medicine. One's a private practice pediatric office, one's a charitable and free clinic, one is a direct primary care office, and we're hoping to start a 4th business model that's going to be more of a community health center, FQHC. And we're one big group of people, we call ourselves neighbors, one mission, many models. So again, this organization doesn't exist at the moment, but that's who we are. And again, I like to agitate and irritate people within that sphere. So Neighbors Health is why I'm here. So we are starting up another healthcare organization. So again, part of this conversation is about your mission statement and kind of being driven by your mission statement. So part of what we're doing now is we are forming our mission statement, our vision and values for this new startup organization that we're starting. I've been on the CCHF board now, just started my second term with them. So I've been a part of the CCHF board a couple of times, including a couple of strategic planning cycles with them. I'm on the board of directors for our free clinic in Charleston. And one of my crowning achievements in life, if you can't beat them, join them. So I'm on the board of directors for my neighborhood homeowners association. So literally couldn't beat them, so I joined them. So I say that because there are a couple examples that come out of that. So, but again, that's not at all important as far as me. It's just context for these conversations. Let me pull you guys a little bit real quick. I know there's some executive leaders here, there's some CEOs here. So if you're in like an executive leadership role at your organization, chief medical officer, medical director, chief operating officer, chief financial officer, sort of an executive leadership role in your organization, raise your hand. Okay, good, because you're gonna teach me a lot today. Good, all right. Students, I know there are a couple students in the back. Any students in here? All right, people just in kind of clinical roles like nurses, nurse practitioners, physicians, couple, okay. All right, people in purely administrative roles, but not, okay, all right. Okay, did I leave people out? Sorry. Anybody weird like me in the hospitalist? No hospitalist? There's not a single other hospitalist in CCHF that I've met yet this year. Okay, that just, again, helps me give some context to where we are. Well, I think about mission statements a lot. I think about kind of 50,000 foot view of what we do a lot. Again, even when I'm not doing that in my hospital job, I'm always thinking about how does seeing this patient right now fit into the bigger construct of healthcare in Charleston. In fact, it's a burden that I carry. I can't not think about it when I'm seeing a patient. And it reminds me a little bit of the story of Jesus and Lazarus. And I'll come back to this a little bit, but it kind of set the tone a bit. I do think that this isn't just a Jesus juke, we call it, where everything can turn back to Jesus, but everything can turn back to Jesus. Jesus was a man on a mission, right? He had a single-minded purpose and focus as he went through his life here on earth with us, right? Jesus prays in John 17. It's this powerful prayer, right? The high priestly prayer of Jesus in John 17. And he says this thing that kind of confuses me sometimes. He prays at the beginning of that, he says, I've glorified you, Father, by completing the work you've given me to do. Right? He hasn't died yet, right? He's still like, Jesus, as Ben McKinney just told us, like, right, he lives and rules and reigns right now. So why at that point did Jesus say, I've completed the work you've given me to do? An author I love, he wrote about how like there were still sick and dying people in the world, right? There were still, he passed by every day people who were still suffering from disease. There's still plenty of people who, the name of Jesus hadn't made it beyond really Jerusalem at that point, right? So how could he pray at that point? I've completed the work you've given me to do, right? Jesus was laser focused on the purpose and what God had given him, his purpose on earth, right? He knew it. And he lived every minute of his life on earth with that purpose in mind. The story of Lazarus, I think of that because in John 11, it starts out, right, that Lazarus is sick. He's probably going to die. And Martha and Mary send word to Jesus. And again, it's this weird thing in the Bible, right? John says, Jesus, he loved Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. He loved them. So he waited. It's like he loved them, and so, therefore, right, if someone you love is dying, right, all right, we had a neighbor have an anaphylactic reaction in our neighborhood the other day. It's kind of funny, right? And they called, I wasn't there, Jessica was there, my wife, and said, can you come help, right? If she had said, okay, yeah, I'll be there tomorrow, right, that's not a very loving way to respond, right? So it's this crazy word to me that Jesus waited because he loved them, right? If you rearrange that sentence. Jesus waited because he loved them. Why? Right? Because Jesus knew his purpose. And he said, this isn't going to end in death. It's happening, why? You remember what he said there? So the glory of God can be revealed. Right? Jesus knew his purpose on earth was not to make Lazarus live. Right? His purpose on life was not just to comfort Mary and Martha. His purpose was to show that he is the resurrection and the life. His purpose on earth was to show the glory of God. So, living your life on purpose, living your life with a focus on mission, right? That's why we're here. I told you I ramble a lot. So that's our objectives. We're going to skip those. Our goal is discussion like we talked about. We're going to look at some mission statements real quick and see, we'll go through these quickly. See if these are corporate mission statements. Most of them are not nonprofits. Some are for-profits. But tell me if you know who these are. Do everything possible to expand human potential. Anybody know that mission statement? It's one of my favorites, actually. What do you think this company does? This is Nike, actually. This is Nike's corporate mission statement. Again, these are kind of just fun. Inspire, educate, and outfit for a lifetime of outdoor adventure and stewardship. One of my favorite companies. Yes, REI. Good. Okay. To be Earth's most customer-centric company. I won't comment, Danny. Did somebody say it? Amazon. Yeah, that's Amazon. To bring the best user experience to its customers through innovative hardware, software, and services. I heard Microsoft. Apple. It's actually Apple. That's Apple's corporate mission statement. Interesting, right? Think differently is their slogan, right? But empower every person, every organization on the planet to achieve more. I heard IBM, not quite. It's actually Microsoft. So it's interesting because you think about sort of, we'll talk about this more, but like how do those two companies, Apple and Microsoft, like what's their sort of profile in the world, right? And you think of Apple, you think of their products. And they talk about that, hardware, software, and services. But you think about Microsoft, you think about it a little more. Probably think about Bill Gates, but Microsoft, you think kind of this broader worldwide kind of thing. So I think there's one more. Yeah, so I include one healthcare nonprofit. You probably don't know this one. Provide high quality, affordable healthcare services and improve the health of our members and communities we serve. That's Kaiser Permanente. Just had to include one healthcare. All right, so I'm going to use some of ours now. Let's see. I'm going to use some CCHF affiliated organizations, and we'll talk about these a little bit more. So here's some mission statements from some CCHF organizations. Tell me if you know them. We're called to follow Christ by loving and serving our neighbors through comprehensive quality health care. Our vision is the healing and restoration of homeless and underserved communities. It's LA Christian Health Center. All right, so Katie White, who spoke yesterday, this is her organization. So I love this. They actually include their kind of vision statement as well. What does this organization do? If you don't know them, right, what do? They do healthcare. In what context? It's going to be really boring if you only hear me talk, right? What's that? Skid Row, yeah. So they do healthcare in Skid Row. If you just read this mission statement, you're like, who is that? Right, would you expect this to be Kaiser Permanente or some big hospital system or, I don't know. This isn't a big for-profit, like you could probably guess that, right? They say is healing and restoration of homeless, underserved communities, so you kind of know where to go look for them, right? All right. Anybody know this one? To encourage, engage, and equip Christians to live out the gospel through health care among the poor and marginalized? Okay, good. Make sure somebody got this. So we tweaked this mission statement a little bit in like 2015, 2016, just a tiny bit. We changed the wording just a little bit. All right, we may talk about that, about form mission statements, but there's some. These words are wrestled over. They were argued over. But little things like poor and marginalized. All right, why do you think we would include poor and marginalized in the mission statement of CCHF? Yeah, what's an example of someone who might be marginalized but not poor? Any of you guys work with groups of people who, maybe aren't identified as poor but would call marginalized? Some head nodding. So we thought about like our HIV population, right? So we have a lot of HIV patients. When I was in Memphis at Christ Community, they still do take care of a ton of HIV patients. They're not all poor. That's a very marginalized population that we had absolutely embraced, right? So these words mean something as part of the point here, right? So nobody's going to know this one, I don't think, unless they happen to be from this organization. I love this mission statement. Our mission is for the uninsured families of our community to encounter the love of Jesus through compassionate health care. Our hope is to see them restored physically, emotionally, and spiritually. That's Catalasi Family Health Center, I think. Okay. This, I think New Hampshire. This is when I was involved in this, Resurrection's mission statement. We are a community of Christian disciples using health strategies to restore spiritual, physical, and social well-being among the world's most marginalized by developing leaders and providing compassionate care. It's a mouthful. All right, so what's the point of having a mission statement with all these words in here? I heard focus. I like that word, yeah, focus. Clarity. It's a great word we're going to use again in a minute. Good. Anchoring. I like that a lot. All right, that fits our theme really well. So I like it. So your mission statement should be your guardrails, right? This is sort of this is what we do. Here's our lane that we run in. Here's where we swim, right? We're gonna get to really kind of operationalizing this. What are some practical ways we can live this out? So there are a lot of rabbit holes I'm trying not to run down, but you have your immutables as an organization. Your mission, vision, and values should be your immutables, the things that are fairly unchanging, right? The things that are kind of locked and solid. All right, your mission statement is not only immutable, but it's also the mandate by which your organization runs. If you're a nonprofit, anybody here in for-profit in for-profit? Okay, all right. It's a little different if you're in a for-profit organization, corporation, but for a nonprofit, who's the owner of your organization? Who owns CCHF? Who's that? The members, right? If you're an FQHC, who owns your FQHC? I saw nobody, kinda. The community, the people, the public. The public are the owners. By law, by federal statute, a nonprofit is owned, right, by the people, right? So what's your board of directors then? What's a board of directors? They're stewards. They're representatives they represent the community. So they are the people representing the owners. So they're not the owners, right? Again, a for-profit is different. The owners are the board. The board owns potentially the company. Shareholders may own it, but for a nonprofit, for us, our organization are owned by the community, and our board of directors are supposed to represent that. So this mission statement is written into your application to be a nonprofit, right? So your 990s, your federal tax statements have your mission statement on there, and it says the reason why we don't pay taxes is public, why we don't give money back to the community is because we're providing a public service to you, right? And so this is the public service we're providing to you. So again, you're telling everybody in the world, you're telling your community that this is why we're valuable, this is what we do, this is the value we bring to your community, right? So it's pretty critical, right? Let me back up too. Most of this is plagiarized, okay? Almost everything I say you can read in a book somewhere. A lot of this comes from Mission Drift. You guys read the book Mission Drift? A lot of head nods. Okay, I won't ask why you read it. I can tell you why I read it. It wasn't a pleasant reason. But there's a lot of this comes from that. So yeah. So your mission statement is, again, it's a legal kind of statement in a lot of regards because it's been put on your legal documents. Or again, you've told the federal government and your community this is what we do. So we can talk a whole days and days about forming, creating your mission statement, but it's an important and valuable document. So your immutables, your mission, vision, and values are your immutables. This is who we are, and they really shouldn't change very much. Maybe not at all. Again, we changed CCHFs a little bit to be more accurate, we thought, to what we were, but that's a very delicate thing in and of itself. So, all right. Who knows their mission statement by heart? Like, who can say, I know my mission statement, my organization? Will you tell it to me?
Yes. Mercy exists to reflect the love and compassion of Jesus Christ by providing excellent health care to all in capitalism and support to their families.
Love it. Love it. Good. All right. If you're willing, tell me if you couldn't articulate your mission statement, like spit it out like that. If you couldn't do that right now, raise your hand. Okay. All right. Good. 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 All right. Good. What's that? All right. How about this mission statement? Anybody, if you read Mission Drift and you know this one, don't spit it out. But if you haven't cheated to know this, anybody know this? Would anybody want to go to school in this place? Probably still would, but this is a university's mission statement, or was. To be plainly instructed and consider well that the main end of your life and studies is to know God and Jesus Christ. This sounds like a seminary, doesn't it? You might want to guess what school, university's mission statement this was? Harvard. So this is Harvard's mission statement in 1636, right? So again, point you to Mission Drift, the book. They talk a lot about this, the whole like danger of drifting, right? This is the danger of drift. This is how Harvard was started, and certainly not where Harvard is today, right? So your mission statement can be, right, the driving force behind what you do, or it can be something on paper that really doesn't do anything for you, and over time you just change your words to match what you're doing, okay? Let me ask you a different question. If you couldn't tell me your mission statement off the top of your head, tell me this: why do you get up and go to work every day? Seriously, somebody tell me, like, why, what gets you out of bed in the morning? Make a difference? Okay. What gets you excited? Come on, I know some of you. The people you work with? Okay. Jeff, we're going to talk. Come on.
I've been there for 10 years. My patients are going to show up, so if I don't get out of bed, they're not going to have a doctor to see them.
All right, that's true, but I know you better than that, Danny. Like, what gets you excited? What gets you excited to get out of bed and go to work every day?
The opportunity to serve.
The opportunity to serve.
Partner with God and serving, love engaging with
Opportunity to partner with God to serve your patients and engage them. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Danny loves people, so I know that. Like, I know that he wants to engage with those people. And I mean, so, all right, this is Simon Sinek. What's your why? Like, why do you get up and do what you want to do? That's your mission statement, right? That's your mission statement. And so, again, another route we can take with this is spending the time to sit down and think about your personal mission statement. Like, what is it that motivates you and drives you? And I do encourage you to do that. It's a really fun, exciting process to put on words like, this is why I exist, or why I want to exist, right? So again, Simon Sinek, another great book you should read. Start with any of his stuff. Start with why. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And what you do simply proves what you believe. Okay, do you think your patients know the difference if you show up and you're there because it's a paycheck versus you're Danny Pike and you love people and you want to be there, you're Daisy Dow and you want to engage them because Jesus loves them, right? Do you think your patients are going to recognize the difference? Absolutely. So, there's actually lots of studies in retention of staff in healthcare, and the number one factor associated with retention is mission fit. Not salary, not benefits, but more than anything else, what retains people in healthcare, what keeps people in their jobs in healthcare, is how well they feel connected to the mission of the organization they work for. All right, what's your why? That's Simon Sinek's big thing. What is your why? What's your organization's why? All right. Again, Simon Sinek talks about starting with why. A lot of companies can tell you what they do, but not many can tell you why they do it. So my challenge for you as an organization is, why do you do what you do? You personally, why do you do what you do? And identifying that really drives you to the what. We're going to talk some today about the how. So Sinek doesn't talk about that very much. So another favorite author, Jim Collins. Purity of mission has the power to ignite passion and commitment. Jim Collins talks a lot about the for-profit world, and in his book Good to Great, he did a lot of studies on what companies go from good to great, not just good to okay, but good to great. And then he applies that to the social sectors, and he says, in the social sectors, us, purity of mission has the power to ignite passion and commitment. So this is what we're going to talk about. How do you ignite passion and commitment through your mission statement, or through your personal mission, right? How do you motivate and drive your organization that way? We talked about, this is CCHF's vision statement. So again, we talked about your immutables being your mission, vision, and values. This is what your mission statement looks like if it's lived out. Sometimes, what's mission and what's vision? Well, your mission statement is what we're here to do. The who, what, why, or who, what, why, and where. Your vision is like, if we fulfill our mission statement, what does that look like? That's your vision statement. CCHF envisions a movement of God's people who choose daily to promote healing in marginalized communities in the name of Jesus, right? All right, so again, this is where we're talking about mission integration. It's one thing to have a mission statement, and again, maybe a personal one for your organization. It's another thing to kind of live that out. Let's not be Harvard, right? Let's have our mission statement, our mission be what drives us. We're going to talk about some of these things. This is kind of the nuts and bolts. In Mission Drift, he talks a lot about your mission vibrancy, the health of sort of your mission in your organization. Again, if you're concerned about your mission of your organization, about drift particularly, that book is really great. He has a little test you can go through and sort of score your mission vibrancy. But he graphs it on this scale of intentionality and clarity. So you mentioned the word clarity earlier. Again, I love this. So what's the clarity of your mission statement as far as it relates to faith, as it relates to Jesus? Right? So is it clear, is your mission statement clear that you're an organization of faith? That's the focus of the book. It's about faith-based mission organizations or nonprofit organizations. So is it clear from your mission statement that you're a faith-based organization, right? That you're Jesus-centric, right? I'd say Harvard's was pretty clear, all right? But what's the intentionality of guarding that mission statement is the other part of that scale, right? So we can be very intentional at guarding that, but it not be a very good mission statement, right? It could be, my hospital's organization is healing all people with compassion, faith, and excellence. It's a great mission statement. They have the word faith in there. We're a Catholic hospital system, but there's not a whole lot of faith stuff happening in the hospital, I can tell you that. They're not real happy when I pray with patients, I'll tell you that. But they're very, it's very clear, but it's not very intentional, so about guarding it. So again, mission untrue organizations are not clear about their faith, and they're not very intentional in guarding it. All the way up to mission true organizations are clear and they're intentional. All right, so again, the goal today really, that's all background. The goal today is to try to get some nuts and bolts of like, how do we do this? How do we guard our mission statements? How do we live out our mission statement? How do we increase the vibrancy of our mission within our organization? So again, this is where y'all are going to teach me. I'm going to steal some of this and take it home with me. So one of the first kind of areas that I love to talk about is staffing. So what does a mission true organization look like in staffing? All right, so when I was at Resurrection in Memphis, Kelsey's here too, so she's going to call me a liar on all these things. So people who work with me there. So we had a residency program. So one of my residents also here. Dang it! All right, so in our hiring of residents, particularly in our hiring of staff, we had a process. We had about 100 and something employees when everyone left in 2017. It's a different story. But every single employee that went through who was hired in our organization had one final interview they went through. This is from our front desk staff to our residents to our physicians to any employee that was hired. The final step in their interview process was an interview with me. Sorry. But I was a chief operating officer, and every single person I interviewed. And the one question I had, or the one kind of goal of questions that I had, was to understand mission fit. Part of that's retention, right? I knew if you fit this mission, you're going to stay here, right? But it's also because we had that mission statement. So this is who we are. And I want to know, how are you going to fit in this, okay? So we would grade people on an A to F scale on how well they fit into our mission. Grade our residents too, by the way. You're an A+, Glenn, just so you know. But we had different thresholds for different positions. If you're going to be in an executive leadership position or a clinician in our office, you had to be an A. And an A on our mission fit scale was someone who was there because of the mission. Right? You showed up, you applied to this job, you had this interview because of our mission statement. I want to do that, and that's why I'm here. I don't care what job you give me. That's why I'm here, right? So our residents were that. Our residents came from all over the country to be a part of what was going on there. And so they moved their lives there to be a part of the mission, not for some job, right? That's an A. All right, an F is someone who's there to try to destroy our mission. We never interviewed Fs. I don't think I ever gave anyone an F. A D is someone who doesn't get it at all. They just don't get it. They're going to be a distraction to your mission. They're going to be a problem, right? They don't understand your mission. They really don't care a whole lot about it. And they're just not going to be a good fit. A C is someone who's pretty ambivalent, but they're not necessarily going to be a distraction. They've never really been exposed to it, right? We had a lot of C's, all right? So we had some position. We say, we'll hire a C in this position in certain circumstances. They usually had to be surrounded by a lot of B's and A's, though, all right? And then our B's are people who got our mission statement. They like our mission statement. They were encouraged by our mission statement. They might not get it totally, They might not, take a pay cut to be a part of our mission, but they got it, all right? So I say that because that was part of our approach to saying our mission is this, it's so valuable, we're going to guard it, and one of the ways we're going to guard it is by being sure the people who work here, who put our name on their shirts, right, get it and understand it, right? So what are some ways that your organizations, or that you live out your mission or guard your mission in sort of staffing and hiring and firing and promotions and training people? What are some ways that you can or do live out or guard your mission with your people?
So we do, we evaluate for mission in that first screening call with our HR partner. And so at every step of the interview process, we ask how they resonate with our mission. And so from that point, we set that expectation that this is what we do. We really want people to do that. We implemented that about 8 months ago. We've seen such a shift in the quality of staff that we're hiring.
Yeah, so you assess mission fit on every step along the way from the first screening call. That's great. That's awesome. All right, and don't hear me say the way we did it in Memphis was the right way either, okay? So people say I'm a control freak, all right? So I am. And so it doesn't have to be, that way. What other ways could you or do you see your mission played out in your staff?
So we talked some about spiritual skill sets, and there are questions around that we incorporated in the interview process for prospective employees. So
Yeah.
when I find that someone's been selected to possibly come to my company site, I have requested that I be able to interview those people because it's very easy to just get a body to because you
Yeah.
need, and at positions that are not leadership, like your registration, they're not leadership in that sense, but they are the first people
That's right, yeah.
that your patients are going to encounter, and therefore they're reflective of your ministry. So I think it's very important that they, also be a good mission fit and have a spiritual skill set, not that they have to be, completely sold out, gospel-wise or hope so.
Right.
But they at least have to be open to
Yeah, I love that spiritual skill set phrase. That's great. Yeah, again, I'm repeating some things because it's being recorded. I don't know why it shouldn't be recorded, but spiritual skill set. So assessing for spiritual skills, right? And that's because Lawndale, I should know Lawndale's mission statement, but it's not just about providing, high quality health care, is it? Your mission statement at Lawndale is about much more than just health care, right? It's about holistic care for people, right? It's about communities. And so a spiritual skill set is an important job skill for your front desk registration person to have, right? To fulfill the mission of your organization, right? So great. Any other ways that you guys, we're going to fly, I'm sorry. So feel free to throw things out or not. This is, again, the goal here is to stimulate these thoughts, not comprehensively assess everything. Yeah. Oh, good.
To submit that with their application and our volunteers, and they are asked, why do you want to volunteer with the organization? That's spiritual reference.
Oh, good. Spiritual references, spiritual assessment, good. Can I ask you a question? Do you ever tell someone no? So she's talking. Well, I saw a hand here too.
Yeah, we leverage our mission in our meetings a lot.
Okay, good.
Especially when we have to go into the community or, something just happens in the community that we respond to. And it helps us to move our people when we have to we have business as usual, but then, something can occur in the community that kind of pushes us into the community. And we would leverage our mission to kind of help move people.
Yeah, and you're Jericho Road? Yeah. So I would guess just about anywhere in Buffalo, if you bring up Jericho Road, people are going to know kind of who you, like if I just ask somebody on the street about Jericho Road in your neighborhoods, they're going to know something about who you are, right? And I guarantee they're going to know that Jesus is in that somehow, right? I mean, that's my guess. If I stop somebody in Buffalo and say, hey, you heard of Jericho Road? Right? Do you know they follow Jesus? They're all going to say, yeah, right? Good. All right, so again, we're going to hit lots of different areas. Just, don't compromise on character. You can teach competence. I've heard this a million times, right? This is hard in a time where staffing is, there's wage inflation and it's hard to keep staff. Like, this is a hard thing, all right? And so we could talk all day about this, but hire for character, hire for mission fit. You can teach competence, right? Hire slow, fire fast. Early assessment mechanisms, one of the things Jim Collins talks about in health assessments or social sectors is to have assessments early, right? So even once you hire somebody is to have lots of early assessments of how is this going? Is this person a good mission fit? Have 30, 90-day assessments that really say, is this working or not? And be okay firing people. sometimes as Christian organizations, we really have a hard time with that. But it's, it's important to be able to do that if someone's not a good fit for your mission. Get the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and then arrange the seats. This is, again, a good to great principle that I love. That's why the bus was the icon before this. This is probably, I think, at Res, something that we taught, like this came up like every day, like who's on the bus, who's off the bus. But making sure you have the right people on the bus and the wrong people, frankly, off of the bus is the most important thing Jim Collins would say as far as staffing and hiring for great corporations. This is, again, not even in the nonprofit world, but in for-profit, is having the right people on the bus. So then, after you get them on the bus and you get the wrong ones off the bus, then you figure out what seats people are in. The seats aren't nearly as important. The job someone has at the organization is not nearly as important as the person. And then after that, then the bus drives itself. Then the destination, the what, happens because the who is there, right? To kind of mix Simon Sinek, right? So the what do you do in an organization is going to play out if you have the right people on the bus. And then mission fit testing we talked about. So, all right. Again, I know that was like way too fast, and we can ruminate on this forever. But the goal here is to kind of stimulate thoughts and you guys to chew on this a little bit and think about your organization. What can we do better? What can we do differently? What are we doing well, right, with staffing and fitting our mission? Okay, metrics, mission true metrics. That's where my HOA story comes in. So what's the purpose of an HOA besides making your life miserable? Who lives in an HOA neighborhood? All right, I do. What's the goal? What's the purpose of an HOA? Why do they exist? Control freaks, yeah. On paper, like what is, in principle, what is the reason why a homeowner association exists?
Free snow plowing.
Free snow plowing, okay. All right.
The neighborhood standards.
To uphold the neighborhood standards. All right, so services, so there are some services, and to uphold the neighborhood standards, right? They're there to serve the people, right? It's an association of the members who live in that community, right? So if you're on the board of the HOA, right, what's your job? What's that? Yeah, you're representing the people. Like you're a homeowner, you're representing the other homeowners. Your job is to represent your neighbors, right, in this association. Okay, so I use the story because recently at a board meeting of my HOA, again, I literally joined them because they drive me crazy and I'm the no guy. Like I just say no to, like, we're not going to do that. That's terrible. So we're going through the budget and, we have, let me ask you guys this. How many of you measure financially every year? You look at financial metrics every year, right? I hope everyone looks at financial metrics, right? How many of you look at growth? How many of you every year say, we grew 2021 to 2022, we had this amount of growth, right? Is growth always a good metric? Not necessarily, right? So if your cash reserves are growing as a nonprofit, you might want to ask the question of like, is this the right thing to do, right? Is this actually, is this true to our mission, right? Is our growing revenue, is our growing cash on hand, is that actually fulfilling our mission or is it hindering our mission? So my HOA had 700 and something days cash on hand. So we could receive no more funds and we could go for 2 years and run our HOA, right? It's a very small budget, all right? But we could run our HOA for 2 years without ever receiving any more funds. And I said, we're stealing, right? We have 2 years worth of cash on hand from me. Like, we exist to make this community better. Like, we gotta spend this money, guys. Either we gotta spend it or give it back. So the point is, like, we were so focused on, hey, look, our bank account's growing. This is a great metric. We got more money this year than we did last year. And HOA's bank account, in my opinion, should never grow, right? Like, what's the purpose of having more money as a HOA, right? So, what are we measuring? And is it the right measurement? So again, for me, our HOA was not fulfilling its mission in its metrics it was measuring. So, and I challenge you again, maybe finance is a metric. Now, if you have 10 days cash on hand, I've been there. It's not a good place, all right? That's, you need to grow that cash on hand, hopefully, to thrive. But if you have 200 days cash on hand, if you're seeing every year that your investments are growing, so I won't get into my hospital, which is a nonprofit system, and how we lost money last year because our investments did so bad. We had $500 million in investments as a nonprofit hospital. Really? So anyway, you ask the question, are we measuring the right things? Are the measurements we're using a reflection of our mission? Finance is important. no money, no mission, right? But no mission, no reason for money. All right, so what are you measuring? What you get what you measure, and are we measuring the right thing? So if I tell you that my brand new drug, this new statin, this is an old analogy, but if I have a new statin and it's going to lower cholesterol by 80%, right? Am I going to get FDA approval? It's safe, it's tolerable, all those things. Yes, I'm going to get FDA approval. I'll lower LDL cholesterol by 80%. Do you care? Are you going to prescribe it? Please don't, okay? Because there's a million other statins that do the same thing, right? If we ask that question, you're going to get an answer to the questions you ask. If we're asking the question, how much does this medicine lower LDL cholesterol? You're going to get an answer to that question. Well, what if I ask, how much does this drug lower all-cause mortality? Oh, by the way, mortality is lowered by, 3 percentage points more than every other statin for all causes over a 10-year period, right? Now, is that a drug you're going to prescribe to your patients? Right, your relative risk reduction is, 200% over other statins. Okay, so if we ask the right questions, we ask the big questions, what does this do for mortality? That's a much better question, but you're going to get answers no matter what question you ask. So what questions are you asking your organization right now? What questions are you asking about your mission? Are you asking questions about, are we seeing more patients this year than last year? Are we, again, are we seeing our ratios, financial ratios looking better than last year? Are we seeing more donors than last year? Those are good questions. They might be really good questions. But are you measuring impact? Are you measuring effectiveness of that work, right? Are you measuring the big question of, are we displaying the glory of God as an organization this year better than we were last year? Are we more faithful this year than we were last year? That's hard to measure, right? I don't know how you measure that. But are you asking that question? Are you asking the question of your board of directors, right? Hey, how does God want to use our organization? Can he leverage our organization for something greater for his kingdom next year that we haven't even thought about yet? What does God have for us, as opposed to, some other, the UDS, what's this report, diabetes A1Cs this year, less than 9%. So we got to ask some of those questions because the feds say we have to. Maybe you're a charitable clinic, you don't, but there are bigger questions. If we ask the right questions, if we ask bigger questions, you might get answers to those questions. So the questions you ask will dictate the answers that you get. All right, so what are some ways that you guys could or would or do measure your mission statements, measure outcomes of your mission statement? Maybe you're doing this, maybe you're not. You're thinking, I could do it this way. Yeah, what's a way that you can, in your metrics, I'd say in your annual report, what are some ways that you report or you measure or you examine your mission statement and how it's being fulfilled or lived out? Do you? And if you do, how do you do that?
Our motto was changing lives through God's love. We pulled papers out of each clinic for patients through their testimonies. So we report those testimonies on a monthly basis to our volunteers.
Yes.
And we report it to the board and bonus those that are annual gala to be a fundraiser. So,
I love it. So one of your metrics is you want to see testimonies of God's faithfulness right through your organization, right? So you measure that in the sense of you collect them and you share them with your board and you share them with your fundraisers. I love it. So that's a metric, right? If you went a whole month and there wasn't a single testimony in that box, right, it would be discouraging, probably. That's a great, I think, measurement of a metric that matters. Alliteration. Any other ways that you measure the effectiveness of your mission statement? Yeah, go Daisy.
We track something called CAP scores. We give the patients surveys at periods of time, and some of the questions include things like, did someone address like your spiritual needs or share that with you? So addressing the spiritual part of that, and then there are other metrics, like their provider encounter. They reach you, aid it kind of stuff.
Yeah. The spiritual care of your patients is a part of your mission and your purpose, and so therefore you measure it. You say, did someone share with you about spiritual health? right? You ask the question of your patients, right? And you measure that, right? And one of the things about measurements, oh my goodness. All right, one of the things about measurements is you got to be willing to be humble, right? I know. Sometimes you might get numbers that show that you're not doing a good job, right? You might go a month without those testimonies in the box. And then you got to say, okay, that's what measurements are for. It's not just so we can say, look how great we're doing. All right. I'm like totally out of time. Go figure. 5 humility, celebrate wins, what gets measures gets done. Yeah. Jim Collins, again, Good to Great, says, for a social sector organization, performance must be assessed relative to mission, not financial return. Again, this is a big-time business world guy. All right, time. I will kind of talk now some. So how is your mission statement reflected in your time use? Okay, I'm going to give you one story. I thought this was great. In Good to Great, they talk about these 4 quadrants of kind of time management, your urgent versus your important. And quadrant 2 in that are your non-urgent but important matters. Okay, so I'd say your spiritual health, your Bible reading time, your quiet time in the morning is a quadrant 2 activity, right? There's nothing urgently saying, if you don't respond to this email right now, then something bad's gonna happen, right? If you don't have your quiet time right now, something bad's gonna happen, right? It's not urgent. There's not an urgency to do this. Maybe there is internally, that's good, but there's not something pressing on you to do it, whereas, whatever crisis just happened in your clinic might be, right? But it's incredibly important, right? Your time with God is incredibly important. So quadrant 2 activities are these things that are very important, but not urgent. And they tend to get pushed out of our lives as we get busy, right? So we implemented quadrant 2 time with our organization. And I said, it was like every week you had to have 4 hours a week. You're shaking your head. So with my managers, I said every week you have to have 4 hours a week where your phone is off, your computer is closed, and you're thinking big picture, how can we run our organization better? How can I care for my people? Maybe you're in prayer, maybe you're journaling, maybe you're in the Word, that's great, but this is your quadrant 2 time that you're spending this, you're gonna shut out everything that's urgent for that time, and I'm gonna pay you to do it. This is on the clock time. All right, so for our managers. All right, we also had an hour a week where we did staff training. So 1 hour a week, and we merged with another company, and they did not like this, all right, but we paid people an hour, all of our staff, 100% of them, an hour every Friday morning. We did an hour of staff training, and once a month at least, that was spiritual health training and counseling. Right? So we spent money on that. So do you pay your staff to pray? Right? If your staff are staying late, if your nurses are staying late because they're praying for a patient, everyone else is going home, but they're in the room, they've been there for 30 minutes praying for that woman, right? Is she still on the clock? Or does she have to clock out? Right? Is how we manage our time, how we allocate our time, is it a reflection of our mission statement? Okay, I hate this term. Please stop using this term. I use it a lot. Non-revenue generating time. Anybody ever use that term in their business? Well, this is non-revenue generating time. I see a faculty member of a residency program. Man, we use that word all the time, that phrase. I hate it. Non-revenue generating time. All right, how about non-mission generating time? But, all right, mission true time. How do you spend your time? What do you pay your employees to do? Invest in people. Value what's important. Schedule what you value. Right? If you value prayer, then pay for them to come in and do devotions in the morning. We used to have devotions in one organization. Don't worry about that. You're on the clock at 8, but we'll do prayer at 7:30. Come in at 7:30 and pray with us. You think the staff came? Some did, some didn't. They're there at 7:30. Pay them to be there. All right. Money. I know an organization that I love. Yeah.
Can you close down so we don't make them clock out?
You don't make them clock out? Good.
So they can still pray, but not early, trying to get kids to school.
Yeah, good. And hear me say, I know a lot of you guys are doing this really well, and if I had 2 more hours, I would probably keep talking, but I really do. Some of you guys are doing this really well, and I hope you'll connect with people. If you hear stories of people doing these well, say, man, can I learn from you how to do that? Because some people are doing this much better than I have in the past. All right, money. There's an organization that I know, a large FQHC is doing really well, and their CFO, I love this, came from the CFO. The CFO said, we need to tithe 10% of our revenue as an FQHC. Tithe it to other ministries, other things going on. The CFO said it. I love it. Not the CEO. All right. Because he said, again, that's who we are. That's part of who we are as an organization. Our money is given to us by God, right, for these purposes. So are we reflecting that, all right, and how we spend our money? So we can talk about this all day long. Is your mission statement reflected in your budgeting process? When you go through your annual budget, do you compare that to your mission statement and say, your mission statement is a reflection of what you're saying no to, right? Whatever you don't fund in your budget is what you're saying no to. So you cannot say, well, spiritual care is important to us, and we've allocated no dollars for that in our budget. Spiritual care is not important to you. If it's not budgeted, frankly, as an organization, it's not important to you. Your budget is a reflection of your values. So what's in your budget? How do you reflect your values, your mission and vision into your budgeting process? How do you reflect in your relationship with your donors? What do your social media posts look like to your donors? If I see you on social media, I'm not on social media, so I won't, but if I see your Instagram posts for your organization, am I going to know that those people love Jesus, right? Or if I watered it down a little bit so that I'll get more donors? Anybody ever been challenged by a donor saying, well, we'll give you more money if you're not so bold about this, or if you're a little quieter about that? All right, that's a huge temptation, particularly if you're a charitable clinic and all of your revenue comes from that. That can be really difficult. I'm on a board now where we're really struggling with that right now because we have one major donor and they kind of drive a lot of what we do. And I don't like their politics sometimes, but so how are we reflecting mission in our budgeting process, in our donor relations? All right. Your donors should know your why, not your what. Your donors should know your why, not your what. They might want to know your what as well, but if they want to know how many patients you saw last year, what's your revenue look like, what are you going to do, how many clinics are you going to open, if that's all they care about, then maybe you need to question whether that's a donor that really is committed to your organization, right? If you tell them stories of your patients and how they came to Jesus and how communities were restored, I can tell you again, an organization I'm a part of that I struggle with because we had board members who had never stepped foot in our clinics. Never once. Board members who had never once stepped foot in a clinic. I question whether that person really understands and is engaged in who we are as an organization, right? Okay, your donors, again, should know your why, not just motivated by your what. All right, your board. This is a whole other conversation. Oops, sorry, wrong slide. So again, how many of you interact with the board of directors? Like, how many of you have a regular interaction with the board of directors? Okay, all right. So again, we can talk about this all day long, but your board is, if you work for a board, then you work for a board, right? If you're a CEO, then you have, your board's your boss. And so my encouragement here is to engage your board of directors on a missional level, right? So again, you should stand in front of a board meeting and be able to share about your passion for the mission and why you go to work every day, and that should motivate your board members as well. And if not, you need to get them off the board, frankly. And when you're looking for new board members, right, you want them to, again, be excited and motivated about why you're there and what you're there for. Right, you want them engaged in your mission. You want them to be these billboards for the mission of what you're doing. All right, not just something on the resume. So again, we can talk about board directors all day long, but who's the guardian of your mission? So here's another kind of scary question. Any founders in here, like board founders, or anybody? So anybody at an organization who holds the mission of your organization? If you're founder or kind of the chief instigator, agitator, the chief mission holder, visionary in your organization, if they leave tomorrow, they get in a car wreck and they're gone, what happens to your organization? Who's the keeper of your mission? Your board should be, So ask yourself that question. If this person leaves tomorrow, what happens? And you go, ooh. Think about that, right? So our board should be the guardians of our mission, right? They should be the guardians of our mission statement and really as passionate or more passionate about it than most of us. Easier said than done, I know. What processes do you have in place to ensure that your board of directors invest in your mission statement? CCHF, for example, the CCHF board, I don't know if they still do it. I haven't yet been to a board meeting as a newly elected member, but in the past, we read our mission statement at the beginning of every board meeting. So every board meeting, we read the mission statement. Here's why we exist. Part of that's because we want to focus our board meetings on, okay, this is the purpose, this is the mission of CCHF, so let's now get into budgeting and whatever, right? So, all right, my favorite topic that we won't get to talk about, culture eats strategy for breakfast, all right? Good old Peter Drucker. So if I say my pleasure, what do you think about? It's for you, Danny. All right, if I say my pleasure, Chick-fil-A, what is culture? Culture is not a thing. Culture is not the thing. Culture is a constellation of things, okay? So how does your mission statement lived out in the culture of your organization? Lots, habits, consistency. What are the traditions and rituals in your organization that reflect your mission, right? Can you tell the story of your organization? I know Daisy can. I love hearing Daisy's story, right? And Daisy tells her story a lot because she wants to remember that. And that begins to create culture as we tell our story over and over. Right? That's the story of the Jews, of the nation of Israel, right? They tell their story over and over again, right? So what are the rituals? What are the stories that you tell to create culture? So again, sorry to blow through that, but how do you stay relevant and adapt? I'm just going to finish with this. Actually, I'm not. This is a great, you should read this, Hebrews. So in the story of Lazarus, right? So Jesus waited. He waited because he wanted the glory of God to show. To be seen. And then he goes, and Martha approaches him and says, "My Lord, if you had been here, he would not have died." Right? And Jesus doesn't rebuke her. But you also don't see any evidence of emotion, frankly, with Martha. He engages her intellectually, and he says, "I am the resurrection and the life." Right? So we have this great line from Jesus, but he engages her intellectually. Because that's Martha, right? We know Martha's type A. She's the type A one, always doing things, always trying to fix things, right? And Jesus meets her where she is and engages her on an intellectual level and says, "I'm the resurrection and the life." And then Mary comes to him, says the exact same words. "My Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." What does Jesus do with Mary? It's the easiest Bible verse to memorize in the Bible. Jesus wept. It says he was deeply moved and he wept. He wept with Mary and he engaged in dialogue with Martha because that's what they needed, right? So our strategies can change. Jesus had one purpose: see the glory of God. See that I am the loving Savior of all people. I am the resurrection and the life. The strategy and how I show you that is going to be different. Our strategies can change, all right, but our mission, our single-mindedness has to stay the same. Fix your eyes on Jesus, right, the author and perfecter of your faith, right? He saw the joy set before him, and he lived his life that way, right? So we're to fix our eyes on him, and we're to walk single-mindedly in that direction. All right, sorry that was an abrupt ending. We have 2 minutes for questions, comments.
I think back to what you said early on about board being a representative of the community. Do most boards have community members on their board?
The most boards have community members on their board. So FQHCs have to have 51% of their board members being users of their services. So of course, a charitable-based clinic would not necessarily have to. So I don't know. Other boards that are not FQHC, do you have community members on your boards?
We do.
You do?
We have former patients. We also have a patient advisory council that is made up of all patients or former patients or leaders from the communities, since we're not FQHC, so we still want people to engage them.
Yes, the patient advisory councils are awesome. Sometimes that's also a way to kind of guard your mission a little bit by having a lot more input from community members, but not necessarily give them control, honestly. It's a great strategy, having advisory boards of different type. Is that helpful? Is that interesting? Other questions? Again, sorry for the abrupt landing. Yeah?
I actually have a question for Daisy. I'm just curious, when you said you do spiritual skill set assessment, are there specific questions or things you all ask? Is it like a survey specifically?
We have two, that's what I would say.
It's a list of questions that was developed by our HR operations people, and so I got a copy of it because for me, I can see those facts at my particular website. And I view everyone as potential future leaders, and you work within, so we don't have anyone who I think it's important that they come forward.
So you have that list of questions. You mentioned you view every new employee as a potential leader. All right, so Chantel Leatherwood, if you don't know Chantel, right? She's the CEO of Christ Community in Memphis. She started out as a registration clerk, right, at the front desk, right? She was like mission-centric, like she was there for all the right. Now she's the CEO, right? So who knows who's the next CEO of your organization is, so. All right, thank you guys, appreciate it.